The moment has arrived. Everything you've ever wanted will be in this video. All your wildest dreams will come true because I am the living legend of hair loss, the true alpha male. I rule the kingdom of hair loss. Let's check out a comment that I received. I made a video called Growing Receding Hairline Crew Cut into Flat Top for 2020. Man, by the way, I'm like just spending hours of my morning. I have the day off from work. I had one more day off from work where they're like, hey, if you don't take this day off, it won't carry into 2020, so you might as well just take off a random Thursday. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend hours just shooting videos responding to people's comments. So that's why I am wearing this yellow shirt in so many videos. And so many of these comments are on the same video. Growing Receding Hairline Crew Cut into Flat Top for 2020. Our friend Talon Harvey, who based on the thumbnail, man, that is a guy with a lot of thick hair and beard. Man, that's a lot of hair there. Okay, here's what he says. Quote, hey Nick, I'm about Norwood 2 and then 3 through my 20s to about 30 and wore a flat top. So let's just put that in perspective. Let's perceive this. So he's saying between 2 and 3, he was in his 20s and 30s wearing a flat top. Okay, which is important because the general consensus is I'm Norwood 2.5 because I've got a point here, but I've got round here. So round is Norwood 3 if this is also round, which it's not. This is pointed. And since this is not pointed, that makes me Norwood 2.5. That's the general consensus. All right, back to the comment. I just wanted to put that in perspective. He says, it's not a perfect one, talking about the flat top. It's not a perfect one, but it's yours and it's a great haircut. I have wanted to see you get one for years. I also wore mine to have maximum amount on top with the top of the sides kept vertical and 90 degrees to the top. And I suggest do the same in the back. So there's corners in the back and a 90-degree edge along the back of the top to the back instead of rounding it from the back. A 1 on the sides is less stark than a 0 and allows some color on the sides. Use a mousse to spread apart the hairs and a stiff hairspray when you're done. You can stretch haircuts to a month if you use a foil screen shaver just to trim the tips on top to keep it looking crisp. That's flat top lingo. Also, cleaning your neckline when you shave once a week helps it tidy. Last, a mustache or goatee looks cool with a flat top. Looking forward to February. Your first flat top is so much fun and never your last if you have hair. End quote. So I want to just make this video to focus on his comments alone. And I think that's interesting because something I have been questioning is, and that's part of the fun of it, part of the challenge, do I have enough hair to pull off a flat top? Is the ultimate question. Can a guy with a Norwood 2.5 make a flat top happen? Now, we could overanalyze things by me looking really close into the camera and you, oh, look at that, you've got bald spot there. Now, actually our Maxwell Smart, our resident barber, has said that's not actually a bald spot, it's more of a cowlick. It's how the hair grows. And granted, my hair is thinner on top, it just helps accentuate that when my hair is short, but ultimately it's not actually a balding spot. So we've got this Bermuda Triangle of hair loss right here, which that's also, I have to give credit to Maxwell Smart, he invented that phrase. Bermuda Triangle of hair loss, because I may or may not keep this over the next decade or so, I don't know. You know, and generally I have seen that it seems every 10 years of my life, my hair changes. I remember, you know, around the time I turned 20, for the first time I looked in the picture, my hair was kind of long, but I saw how high my forehead went up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that was me kind of going into Norwood 2 in my 20s. And then by the time I turned 30, my hairline had went back more, but ultimately that was the first time I noticed it is thinner on top. And then now I'm less than a year and a half from 40. I'll turn 40 April 20th, 2021 is when I'll turn 40. And, you know, what will be the next stage of digression by the time that happens, by the time I'm 40? We'll see. I mean, perhaps the spot in the back is going to become thinner. I mean, but even if it does, I don't perceive that it's just suddenly going to become a clean bald spot just very quickly. I think I will lose some real estate here. I think the top may thin out a little bit more. It's such a slow motion thing that it makes me by the time I'm 50, I really don't know. I think I may be surprised I have as much hair as I do, but ultimately for me, once I'm at a strong Norwood 4, I'm done. I'm just going to shave off my hair anyway, and that's fine. That's no big deal. But going back to the comment, so he's saying that he was pulling off this flat top. He gave me some tips here. And what you were saying about the 1 on the sides instead of a 0, I agree that sounds probably like the best option. I do like, the last haircut I got was what, like 3.5 weeks ago, and I left the top obviously and had a 0 on the sides and the back, and it looked great. I don't know that for my next haircut, that's what I'm going to do. I think, well, actually, let me rephrase that. What's my next haircut is the question. I have a feeling that by the time this is long enough to get a flat top, I'm going to need this cleaned up anyway. What I predict will happen is that I'll do another 0 guard on the sides and the back while leaving this, just to help prepare for the flat top come February or March, is what I would expect. So I think the next haircut will be 0s, but it won't be the flat top. But I am going to see how long I can go without a haircut before getting the next haircut. But ultimately, I don't think the next haircut can be a flat top, because I just don't think the top is going to be long enough for that. And by getting another 0, that will really help it continue to grow out well. I mean, because that's part of the whole project here in the fall season of 2019, is growing out a 0 guard buzz cut or number 1 buzz cut with as much elegance and grace as possible, because often it just looks horrible. But by the time it was the equivalent of like a number 3 guard, I did the 0, and then that really kind of helped it. I mean, I'm not here to say this is the best look on me, but I'm here to say it's not bad. I mean, for the situation. So yeah, I really appreciate those tips. I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking at in these next couple months until I do get the flat top. Ultimately looking at what's the best way to go about this. How do you transition it? It'd be one thing if instead of when I have my hair longer and I shaved it off, I thought about even then just getting a flat top then. But ultimately I wanted to show people the Remington Shortcut Pro, because I'd highly recommend that, and I wanted to just really make it more of a dramatic thing. But I think this makes more sense for the storyline of the character arc, because remember, this is just hair loss entertainment. That's all this channel is. In real life, I totally don't care about hair at all. What I actually care about is my music. I love writing music, singing, playing guitar, including my wife in those songs. Like that actually I care about, but hardly anybody watches those videos. So, I'm like, okay, well, for the paycheck, I'll just keep talking about hair loss nonstop, because that's the free market. So ultimately, yeah, that's my plan then. My plan is probably, I don't know, we're a week away from Christmas, so maybe a month from now in January, like mid-January, late January, maybe I'll go in for another 0 guard on the sides and the back. And maybe by the time that grows in full, then I'll be at enough real estate for the true flat top that we're aiming for in 2020. So, and I'm looking at Maxwell Smart. He had left a comment too, so I might as well just kind of read through this too. Maxwell Smart says, quote, "I still think you should start with a shorter flat top and gradually transition to a longer one," which I definitely want to do that. But see, then it comes to perspective, a round head, and if it were, how tall would it have to be? Trying to figure all that out. I guess he goes on to talk about it. I think you will find it easier to handle and get used to. That way, if you start shorter and the place where you go to messes it up, you can always buzz it off and start over, which I wouldn't do. I'm committed to this. We got it. Even if it's not the best flat top, I'm committed to the flat top. Remember that with finer, thinner hair, it takes more effort to keep a flat top standing tall. The longer the hair, the more difficult it will be for you. A length of 1.5 inches at the apex of your head, at the tip of the Bermuda Triangle. Remember that your skull is round and that a flat top is square. There has to be length in order to create a square shape with sharp angles. 1.5 inches at the apex of your head will mean 2 inches or more at the tip of your Bermuda Triangle. 1 inch at the tip of the Bermuda Triangle will leave you with about 1/2 inch or less on the apex of your head. So I guess like there, right? In my honest opinion, you will still have a lot of personal maintenance to keep it looking sharp. Once you've tried a few flat tops, I have another option for you called the faux flat. I didn't mean to scare you. My thoughts were to provide you with assistance in order to avoid disappointment. So, yeah, this is very good for me. it's funny that anyone would think that I'm an expert on anything related to hair. I'm just an entertainer, and I'm nothing more than that. I'm just amazed that people care about watching me talk about hair, because like, why, what qualified me? I guess making thousands of videos over the last 4.5 years, I guess, apparently. So let's just put this in perspective. Granted, I did not Google the word apex. It's not a word I've ever said before until just now, but I'm pretty sure what he's saying is that for a flat top to work out, this is gonna have to be 2 inches right here, the tip of the Bermuda Triangle. And then because it's gonna be flat, this part's gonna be about a 1/2 inch, which right now my hair is, I measured it a couple days ago. I think it's like around 3/4 of an inch. Granted, it's got some wave to it, so it's not perfectly straight as people think it is. It's about 3/4 of an inch. But he's saying it's gonna take a couple more months. I'm gonna need 2 inches here ultimately. And then for that to go on top, it's gonna only be about a 1/2 inch. So in theory, what's on top at the shortest part is going to be shorter than it is now as I grow into this. And it's interesting because there's a guy at church that I go with. I think he's in his 60s, and he's Norwood 1, and he has a flat top. And so I've been talking to him about it. And actually, he's part of the reason why his name's Rick Pagic. Not a famous man. You Google him, you won't even. But anyway, Rick Pagic, this guy I go to church with. He's, I guess, in his 60s. He has what I would say is the perfect flat top. And maybe in Norwood 1, he's probably more of a juvenile hairline, honestly. So already he's got a perfect head of hair to work with, but he maintains the flat top. And I asked him, he said his is about an inch and a half, but he can pull that off because he has a hairline that's like this. So for me, I have to adjust accordingly and keep all that in mind. And that's a lot of what we're gonna look at the storyline of these videos leading into 2020. Basically, I think we're gonna ask a question or answer a question, and that is, how short of a flat top can I have and it still be a flat top that looks good? Will I need 2 inches on top to pull off a flat top for Norwood 2.5? And I guess that's the title of this video. Your comments belong right here.